On October 21st, 2024, a tragic event would plunge the entire United States into mourning when Lieutenant Commander Lindsay Evans and Lieutenant Serena Williman, two members of the United States Navy, ended up perishing after a series of failures that ended up causing their EA-18G to crash near Mount Rainier during a routine training. The nationwide outpouring of support for this tragic event included former President Joe Biden sending his condolences to the Marines. While most comments were positive, there were also many negative ones, such as this example. DAY is an abbreviation of Diversity, Equality, and Inclusion, and they call it that for people who are in a place because they belong to a minority group and not specifically because they deserve to be there. There were many comments like these showing that there are many people who think that women are bad pilots and that they are there only for inclusion. This is a really widespread thought, so at the time it made me question the following. Could it be that women are worse pilots than men? And unfortunately, after doing some research, I found scientific evidence that confirms that women are statistically worse at piloting. And even the study tells us why this is, and it's rooted in the very functioning of our brain. In the United States, only 5% of pilots are women. This is basically low, especially considering that women have been flying planes since almost the beginning of aviation. In World War II, we saw the Women's Auxiliary Voluntary Service Program, where 1,000 women were trained to fly and carry out other functions of air defense. However, after World War II, there was little interest and opportunity for there to be female pilots. In '75, a program was opened for women to study to become pilots. The first class of female pilots was known as the United States Air Force Undergraduate Pilot Training Class. 7,708, they earned their Silver Wings on September 12, 1977. However, there were a number of exclusion policies that prevented women from flying combat planes, but the real turning point for female pilots came in 1993, when Defense Secretary Les Aspin ordered the military to open combat missions to women, revoking the previous exclusion policy. Making that shortly after Jenny Lisbeth became the first female combat pilot of the United States Air Force in 1993, she later became the first woman to command a combat squadron in the United States Air Force. The future looked promising for those women who dreamed of being pilots. However, on October 25, 1994, an event would occur that would change everything. That day, Cara Hultgren, the first female carrier-based fighter pilot of the United States Navy, tragically also became the first female fighter pilot of the United States military to die in an accident. Her F-14 Tomcat sank into the sea during a final approach to the United States ship Abraham Lincoln off the coast of San Diego. As she approached the aircraft carrier, Hultgren found herself overshooting the center line of the landing platform. Instead of accelerating to try to land again, she tried to correct it by applying the rudder. This interrupted the airflow to the left engine, causing it to lose lift. Realizing this, she tried to accelerate to attempt the landing again by applying full afterburner in the remaining engine, but this worsened the situation by causing the Tomcat to tilt even more to the left. The plane at that point was uncontrollable, and her radar officer, seated in the back of the two-seat cockpit, ejected without problems. Hultgren's ejection seat fired a second later, but by then the Tomcat was already upside down. Hultgren was ejected downward, falling into the water, and obviously the worst happened. After this, endless criticism arose, directed at the pilot's ability because she was a woman. Remember, this was the 90s, and it was still a difficult time for women. In a 1995 letter to Republican Senator Stone Trumbull, Elaine Donnelly, president of the Center for Military Readiness, wrote, "In their rush to incorporate women into combat roles as soon as possible, Navy leaders have denied unit commanders the tools they need to make integration viable." Lieutenant Hultgren was an F-14 pilot with unlimited capabilities who had she been a man, she possibly would never have graduated to the fleet. The United States Navy defended her, but the collective mindset thought this way. Despite this dark chapter in military aviation history, women continue to join the Navy and aviation to learn to fly, and there have been countless of them. But even in recent years, the criticisms have only increased. And there are still people who claim that women pilots are put there for mere inclusion. A popularly cited study is one from 2001 conducted by researchers from the Bloomberg School of Public Health at Johns Hopkins and published in Space and Environmental Medicine, where they examined the National Transportation Safety Board. Reports on general aviation accidents of airplanes and helicopters between 1983 and 1997. The study concluded that the majority of accidents were due to some type of pilot error, 95% in the cases of women and 88% in the cases of men. Loss of control during landing or takeoff was the most common circumstance for both sexes, causing 59% of accidents in female pilots and 36% in male pilot accidents. Mechanical failures, running out of fuel, and landing with poorly deployed landing gear were more common among men, while loss of lift and other errors related to poor piloting were more frequent among women. But perhaps the most revealing data was the poor handling of the airplane controls. It was much more frequent among women. In men, it was only 48%, while in women it was a chilling 81%. According to reports, male pilots were more likely to have accidents due to lack of attention or more reckless decision-making, such as flying in bad weather or with known mechanical problems, while female pilots were more prone to accidents due to poor handling of the aircraft itself. There were also other studies, but they are either very old or very recent and made by newspapers and magazines that really sound like they are a bit biased, so I didn't take them into account. Technically, we could say that women are worse pilots, but we should also consider that men seem to be more reckless in decision-making and a bit more absent-minded. But this does not mean that women should not fly planes. On the contrary, I personally believe that an ideal team for a two-seater plane, for example, is a team made up of a man and a woman, regardless of the role both occupy, in order to counteract the weaknesses of both. Tell me what you think in the comments section. If you are interested in this topic, you are probably interested in why the United States is retiring the F-22 Raptors and is keeping the FA-15 Eagle until 2050. Thank you so much for watching this video and see you next time. Goodbye.